Let's talk Jedi belts for a minute. I use Tandy Buckles, right? They come like this. It's not an actual buckle. I snap this little post off and I flatten it out, and you get this, which is super cool, right? It's a little too small for the width I use of top belt, because I do the double belt style. Look kind of like that, which isn't that big of a deal. I use actual leather, not couch leather, real leather. I'll put a link in the description for everything I'm using. I have a bunch of Chicago screws that I get from AliExpress. These things are fantastic because they're just about the right size. They hold everything in place and they look really, really good. All I'm going to do is burnish the edges. Just run this tool over the wood, or run the wood over the leather. It burns it a little bit, makes it nice and smooth. It looks much better when we dye it. You can use any kind of buckle. I've got a couple of these. These are a bit wider, but they still look really cool. Right? You want to avoid actual buckles, of course. I use these on the backs as belts, because a lot of people put Velcro on to hold their belts in place, and I don't like that. I prefer an actual belt buckle. So I have a bunch of leftover belt pieces, and I'm going to punch a bunch of holes on one end and put the loop on the other. But I'm going to show you a couple examples of belts I've done and belt styles, so you can get a rough idea. They're super easy to put together. And again, that's the point we're at in the Jedi build. So let me show you a couple ideas. So we're going to start with Faith's. Faith was the first belt we made. She had a small Jedi. It's just a couple of belts we found at Goodwill. I don't even know if it fits her anymore. It's been a while since she's worn it. We haven't been able to troop lately. But it's just, cool buckle. A couple of pouches that have been darkened so they match her Jedi a bit better. And that's it. When I made mine, I like mine. This is a Goodwill belt, but the back panel isn't, the big piece. It's your standard Covertech, I believe, clip for lightsabers. Couple same pouches. Mine, I lightened them so they matched my Jedi better. We had bolts going their Chicago screws going all the way through. It's same as these, pretty much. Food capsules. We made Kim's. Kim's turned out fantastic. It's the same buckle as Faith. Her waist sash is permanently attached because it was leather. She's got a bunch of different colors. I believe we got these from Phyllis, along with the pouches. It was just, we changed the color to match her Jedi. And that's Kim's. Kim's looks fantastic. Of all of them, I probably like hers the best, then mine, and of course we have to redo Faith's. So I'm going to walk you step by step what I do. Oh, and if you notice, all of them have buckles on the back, and then the bit of leather that goes over everything to hide the buckle. But I find it's a way easier way to keep everything nice and securely attached. Like I said, some people use Velcro and just Velcro, and that creeps me out because I'm worried about it falling off. I've had pieces fall off me already. I definitely don't want my belt to fall off on me. So let me walk you through what I'm going to do with this one to make it look like the other ones. So let's go over the bill of materials. I'm going to use 12 of these screws. They're just flat and a spade blade on the back. They are roughly the thickness of the leather. I'm probably going to get bigger screws for the back though, because they barely don't fit. And on mine, I had to countersink to get everything to fit properly. I'm not overtly fond of how that looks. Or, you know, it's also a pain. So the first thing I'm going to do is skive. This is a skiving knife. All it is a razor. It makes thick leather thinner. So pull it in, you give it a good pull. Until you get your desired thickness. They make them so you can actually have gauges to cut it at an exact size. I'm not that cool. I just keep going until it's about half thick, because we're going to fold it over. Punch the edges so it'll fit over this, or this will fit in between it. We'll just do from there. It's almost there. I've done this before with just a utility knife. You don't need any fancy tools. They just make things easier, and if I have it, I'm going to use it. Very sharp razor blade. Now when I fold it, the thickness is going to be much more uniform. It's not going to look super thick. So I have a bunch of leather tools, because at one point in time I was like, hey, I like this. This is very cool. I'm going to do a lot of this. And I don't do nearly as much as I'd like to. None of this stuff is actually needed to do what we are doing today. But if I have it, I'm going to use it. Where's my So the right tool is an oblong. I don't have an oblong. So I'm making a couple of now, I put all this together. That's going to fit nice and snug. I'm probably going to round these edges off a little bit with the utility knife. Just for a slightly cleaner look. It's a bit fuzzy, so I'm going to burnish it. As soon as I find my burnisher. At this point, I'm just trying to get all the fuzzies off. I'm pretty happy with that. I want more of a shoulder here. I'm sure all the people who actually know what they're doing with leather are screaming right now, going, "No, you don't do that way." Oh. That's how I do things. The effective but wrong way. There's a couple different ways Jedis have their belts here attached. Some of them do the little belt loops, which is probably what I'm going to do on this one. Just a couple of belt loop holding it in place. And some of them have the rivet like this one. I think I'm going as traditional and screen accurate as I can. So that would be the belt loop. That cures, we do the exact same thing to the other side. Make a simple little knife wall. Like I said, I'm not the best at this. I'm still learning. Leather work is one of the few things that I'm like, well, a few things. One of the many things that I'm like, I don't quite know what I'm doing. So I just fake it till I make it. Just sort of is a secret, really. That's all we're all doing. 99% of us are not experts. And then the 1% that are experts couldn't care less. Side. Just put it down. Simple binder clip to hold it in place. It's not bad. I like that. Once it's dyed, it's going to be really cool looking. again. Just gonna smooth out the edges a bit. Run my beveler over everything. Try and make a little groove. This seems a bit big still, or thick, so I want to thin down the tail end just a little. You can actually feel right here where it goes up. That's a bit better. Then the same thing. So the hard part on this one is knowing where to cut it at, because we're using this as an actual belt. And belts aren't in the middle. So if you look here, this side is much larger than this side, so, you know, we have to keep that in mind. I should have wet formed this, but I didn't. So now we're gonna leave this, let it dry for a little while. So here's where we're at so far. The other belt is currently drying. Luckily, I have an extra one for just this emergency. I have a mark dead center. I'm going 6 inches off the center, so 3 on one side and 3 on the other. Then I'm going to put a rivet, or a button, or a stud, or whatever you want to call it. And then 6 inches and 6 inches. I like that spacing. It lets me segment all my stuff nice and neatly, so I don't have to worry about, you know, lightsabers hitting belts and or sliding around. Everything is nice and in place. So I take this top belt, I'm just going to center it. I want it, this is a 3-inch belt and this is a 1-inch belt, so I want an inch on either end. I just really like the look of the big beefier belts. It seems just a little more impressive. Now something to keep in mind is this rests right on the side, so we don't want to drill directly into it. If I put the hole in the center, the edges don't line up. There's an offset here. Now that I moved everything, let's reline it back up. I've recently found that drilling leather is way easier than trying to punch it. And I'm doing this before I dye it. I feel it's easier to work with. Ooh, nice crisp holes too. All right. I am gonna love this belt. It's a lot darker than I normally do, because the blank is gonna be, or the base belt is gonna be black, which is just gonna look fantastic, especially on this Jedi. And then we're doing the top accent belt in a gray. I think it's just gonna be stunning together. All the way through on that one? So after having punched leather for a while and drilled now, drilling is the way to go, 100%. So much easier, so much cleaner. The nice thing about Jedi belts is once all these holes are in, we'll be able to take it apart pretty easy and put it back together. That's nice. So we continue on with the other two on this side. Luckily, once your first ones are in, everything else just kind of lines up. So I'm not bothering putting the studs in those holes yet. Because I'm now at the stage where I want to clean everything off and then dye it. Dyeing is pretty easy. I'll show you how to do that in a couple seconds as soon as I'm done taking everything apart. First thing we do, gloves. We are about to dye leather. Your hands are leather. Keep that in mind. I'm gonna go over everything with a light, quick coat of isopropyl rubbing alcohol. I'll get all the oils off. I'm gonna make it nice and clean. So I'm gonna try and get this to evenly dye. We're gonna give this a couple minutes to do its thing. Let it flash off, dry, whatever you want to call it. What I use for black is heel and edge dye. Process is pretty simple. You just wipe it on, wipe it off, just like with any leather dye. Now we're waiting. We probably don't have to, but I'll give it a little bit. And we're just coating the whole thing. Watch where it goes because, like I said, leather dye means it'll dye anything. Give it a nice even coat. And we're going to wipe everything off in a second. I'm probably going to do this 2, maybe 3 times, just to make sure I have nice even coverage. I try switching up the directions I'm going every time. So if I'm going back and forth, I'm going to go in circles the next time. You can heat the leather up with a hair dryer or a heat gun. Which will also open up the pores, makes it take the leather much better. I'm not terribly worried about it. But if you're trying to get a very light color, definitely you want to heat it up. That way it absorbs the most dye with the least amount of dye. The most color with the least amount of dye. And luckily we're going to black, so it doesn't really matter. Dark is dark. Alright, we're going to give this a good 20 minutes, let it do its thing, just leave it alone. So that's it. That's everything together. It's dyed black. So it's just accessories. I have 2 3D printed pouches. This is the buckle we're going to use. Adding the buckle is just like doing this, except you punch a hole in the middle. Everything else is the same. Something to hang your lightsaber from, whether it's one of these or the little loop rings. This belt is going to be dyed gray. The dye's not here yet, so this is just it for now. We're also going to put food capsules. Again, haven't picked those up. Jedi accessories could be a video all on their own, and they might be. I'm not quite sure yet. But this is where we are with this one. Looks pretty good, pretty easy. This video is fast, so it's more about getting you links to the parts to make them than how to make them, because again, Jedi belts are super easy. Let's see it on the Jedi. So there it is, 99%. This is going to be a gray, probably a little darker than this, but not much. We're going to replace these with something that's a little more color appropriate. Needs a lightsaber, needs food capsules, but other than pants and boots, which I recommend buying instead of making, I know, he's done. He needs to be hemmed, of course, but I'm super happy with how he came out. It looks fantastic. The silver is just stunning. And then the black leather, that looks so nice. So, it's Jedi. Not easy. Not difficult. It's a fun build. You get to express yourself a little more. Because you make a stormtrooper, he looks like a stormtrooper. Jedis can be individual. Jedis can have their own flair. I've often found that halfway through making it, I realize that it's not who I think it is, and it's a completely different Jedi. And that's such a cool thing, because I'm really happy. This was supposed to be a brown, not a gray, and the gray just turned out perfect. And then the black leather on top, I'm very, very happy with how this guy looks. All we need to do is fix the belt, get him better boxes and accessories. So, that's it. Not very difficult. Go be a Jedi.